Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to a post with a bit of fiction. This continues the daisy-chained story of Mr. and Mrs. Randall. It's called The Lies We Tell. Things were going so well between Mr. Randall and the future Mrs. Randall. She'd gotten comfortable with the idea that he didn't intend to murder her, and he had grown more certain that he wouldn't have to murder her in order to protect himself. They genuinely liked one another, and she'd largely forgiven him for his transgressions, just as he'd forgiven her for counterattacking. Then she found out about yet another woman in his life. When she first found out about her, Mr. Randall told the future Mrs. Randall that he never felt anything for the embarrassingly young, quasi-prostitute honeypot government employee failed spy he'd knocked up. He said that she reminded him of a young Nicole Kidman, but she was an ambitious idiot without a drop of talent. This settled the matter until the future Mrs. Randall found evidence of him expressing his eternal love to the young woman after he'd sent her off to Budapest to have his baby. Throughout the young woman's pregnancy, he'd been sending supportive letters and links to corny videos. Son of a bitch. The internet never forgets these things, and it is tormenting the future Mrs. Randall. So what if he'd put big limits on the relationship and he hadn't even really met the future Mrs. Randall yet? He was still with the original Mrs. Randall at that time, and now the future Mrs. Randall knows the truth. She's livid. She wants to hurt both of them. Retroactively murder, even. If she had magical powers, and it's a good thing she doesn't, because she's a holy terror. She knows that it is possible to love more than one person at once and to love them for different reasons. But the future Mrs. Randall is still livid. She'll make him pay for this one way or another. She doesn't know that this is just a drop in the bucket of his horrible history. I mean, I know why he did it. If you get someone pregnant, it's the right thing to do. Even if it was a lie or the truth or something in between, I still hate him for doing it. He's either lying to me to save my feelings for him, or he was lying to her to save her feelings for him. Either way, there's no truth, she said. The truth is that Mr. Randall does have undying love for pretty young women. It just doesn't matter much which pretty young woman it is, he said. I hate him and his stupid lies. Who lies more? That's an interesting question. Some people lie as a profession, spies, for example, and some people aim to tell the truth as a profession, like scientists. When those worlds collide, she said. I've found that because scientists try to tell the truth, they are more prone to lying to themselves, and I imagine it might be the reverse for spies. Why can't he be a boring accountant who was faithful to his wife and who had weird hobbies? That is what I wanted him to be. This should connect to the lies of Mr. Randall tells his future wife when they first meet. The lies are convincing because they are mostly true, as in lies of omission. He was such a good actor because what he said was true. It just wasn't the whole truth. I'd like to go back in time to murder you while you were doing something awful, but today I don't want to murder you, is such a funny feeling to have about a character. We hate people for having hidden weaknesses because those tend to pop up unexpectedly. It is much harder to hate someone for an obvious weakness. That is why I think that men lie more. They are socially conditioned to hide their weaknesses, and women are conditioned to show theirs. Little old me. Women lie with makeup, perhaps. The young prostitute that Mr. Randall got pregnant always wore too much makeup. He'd first seen her getting out of a swimming pool naked at the manor where his boss invited his best spies as a sort of reward. The manor was crawling with the sorts of women who signed up to be used as honeypots, who learned tricks to get men to expose secrets through pillow talk. They were far younger and sweeter than the sorts of women that Mr. Randall, he's a pimp spy Pilates studio owner, the sorts of women he typically employed in the city. These women were still in training and unaware of how much pain they might someday endure after being used as bait. The bait had given him her number after a brief sexual encounter at a party at the manor house, and he'd met her once at her apartment. Entranced by the magnificence of her lily-white buttocks and youth, he'd gone in without a condom. It wasn't a lengthy sexual encounter, she just had that sort of effect on men. He held her afterwards and marveled at her babyish skin, thinking about how he'd never see anyone like this up so close again. His 60-year-old prostate had been acting up, and he thought of it as a sexual farewell to arms. He didn't think about the consequences of how any future women in his life would react to him. That was a mistake. His even bigger mistake was in underestimating his boss's methods. The young woman had been instructed to go get pregnant by him so that she could be his minder during his retirement. She would deliver regular reports on his mental condition to the organization that trained him, and he would regularly check in on her as she raised his child. She was not required to live with him, love him, or have sex with him. She was only required to spy on him. At least, this was what the future Mrs. Randall told herself as she read Mr. Randall's file. The truth was that when Mr. Randall was considering murdering the future Mrs. Randall in order to protect himself, he was also considering going on the lam and taking one of the more down-on-her-luck prostitutes from the Pilates studio with him, and abandoning both his wife and the young pregnant woman in Budapest. He wasn't seriously considering it, but the thought did cross his mind. If the future Mrs. Randall finds out about this thought, what will happen? If she finds out that the song Mr. Randall was singing to himself sounded like this one. I saw her, I saw her with her black tongue tied round the roses, fist pounding on a vending machine, toy diamond ring stuck on her finger with a noose she can hang from the sun, and put it out with her dark sunglasses, walking crooked down the beach. She spits on the sand where their bones are bleaching, and I know I'm going to steal her eye. She doesn't even know what's wrong, and I know I'm going to make her die, take her where her soul belongs. And I know I'm going to steal her eye, nothing that I wouldn't try, my sun-eyed girl. My sun-eyed girl. I saw her, with her hands tied back and her rags were burning, crawling out from a land-filled life, scrawling her name upon the ceiling. Throw a coin in a fountain of dust, white noise, her ears are ringing. Got a ticket for a midnight hanging. Throw a bullet from a freight train leaving. And I know I'm going to steal her eye. She doesn't even know what's wrong, and I know I'm going to make her die. Take her where her soul belongs, my sun-eyed girl. It's a song Beck sings. All the future Mrs. Randall knows is that he wrote her a letter that showed him in a new light. The first time he professed his love to her, he was intending to kill her, but he did change his mind, so maybe she should change her mind too? He was rather pretty, but looks can be deceiving. Relationships like this one are so complicated. So this is just an example of plotting. I am plotting a story out, and it is work. Real writers know that plotting is work, and that is why it isn't okay to steal someone's plot, their plotting work, and rewrite it in your own voice. I'm sure someone could steal fragments of these ideas and use them for inspiration, but that isn't the same thing as stealing all of the ideas in order. A lot of online authors today seem unaware of this. And while online plagiarism detection hasn't caught up to this type of copying where you're basically compressing or decompressing someone else's work, I think it will. It's technologically feasible. Thank you for watching. Until next time.